A police officer died and several demonstrators were injured on Monday during clashes between security forces and supporters of Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. According to an Interior Ministry statement and media reports, the protest in Ziguinchor, a town in southern Senegal, came a day before the expected start of Sonko's rape trial in the country's capital, Dakar. If convicted, Sonko faces up to 10 years in prison and would be barred from running for presidency. He recently received a 6-month suspended sentence in a defamation case and declared he would no longer respond to court summons. Meanwhile, earlier on Friday, hundreds of opposition supporters and civil society activists gathered at a square in the capital to protest potential third-term bid by President Macky Sall. Macky Sall, has not confirmed or denied he plans to run. He has, however, told a French newspaper in March that he could technically run because the new constitution reset the clock on his number of mandates. The opposition is now accusing Sall's government of using the judicial machinery to target potential challengers, including leading opposition figure Ousmane Sonko, who came third in the 2019 presidential election. To discuss this, I have with me in the studio my colleague Abdulateef Ahmed. He's the head of the research team. Thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Virtually, we have Dr. Bassin Pap Sherif Batron. He is a lecturer at the University Sheikh Anta Diop, Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for giving us your time as well, Doctor. Okay, as soon as we establish contact, we'll welcome him to VSA. Abdulateef, we understand today is the day that the case comes up in court and it has been postponed. What further details can you give us?
Yes, the case has been postponed. Essentially, the atmosphere around the court is tensed, and it looks like the judges are trying to see if there can be more evidence marshaled against the accused persons, and also allow the lawyers and counsel of the accused person to be able to respond effectively to the accusation. So there's a chance that the reason for postponement partly is because they need to build up stronger evidence against Ousmane Sonko, while Ousmane Sonko's lawyers are able to firm up what they need to state in the court in his leave. Yes.
So are you aware, are there any reports of protests at the court premises aside from what we heard yesterday? We know the figures have increased. The death toll, the authorities have confirmed that it's now 3. Yeah,
so because of the cases, I mean, the death toll and the general political atmosphere, while there was no protest from the feelers we got, the tension, the fear that if the court cases proceeds, there's a chance that, if it does not go well with a lot of supporters of Ousmane Sonko, there's a chance that there'll be violence, and again, problems with the security officers. So essentially, you have an atmosphere that needs dousing instead of, proceeding. In any case, a lot of persons are assuming that the court cases are meant to diminish Sonko's political fortune and give the government an upper hand against him.
Well, I mean, what we understand from the scenario playing out there is that the incumbent hasn't confirmed whether he's running for office or not. So the protest on Friday, for instance, they say it's a preemptive one to get him to stop if he has that ambition. What was the rationale? Somebody hasn't confirmed whether he is running. What was the rationale in your thinking for holding that protest?
What is happening is essentially, constitutionally, he has run twice, and considering the recent adjustment in the Constitution 2016, there's a chance that he could run again. But what the argument for most citizens is that he shouldn't run for more than he has run. To them, he's stayed in power long enough to allow for elections to hold, and not run in that election area. However, the fact that he's not spoken is partly responsible for why people are afraid or worried or concerned that if they do not react in this way, there's a chance that he would want to run again and then win because his party is the dominant
But for someone who doesn't seem to be listening to protest or who is sending allegedly sending the armed forces and the police rather to quell protest,
yeah.
Do you think them protesting will have an impact in his decision to run or not to run? Because at the end of the day, I mean, he is somewhere. Why some persons are being killed?
Yeah, so this is the thing. Democratically, protests are, allowed for. They are allowed for. There are meaningful ways to say this is what we want or this is what we do not want. But where the challenge is when you decide to allow the system to run the way it is. I mean, a lot of leaders in Africa will rather stay in power, like forever. But if you do not protest, it means that he will rely on the Constitution and he will say he hasn't violated the Constitution in any way. So sometimes you need to not only preempt, but to stand clearly and state clearly, express the voice of the people. I mean, the voice of the people is the voice of God, as they say. So when there's a popular protest, when there's a popular campaign or there's a popular direction as to what people want or what people wish for, it will determine, what they call body language of, the government and say, this is what people want. People, the word on the street says this, or this is the general, perception in the polity. And then it may inform their decision either to, leave power, as it were, or to move on. I mean, sometimes even the reaction of the security forces is not essentially what the government wants, but some try to overreach themselves. They think, okay, well, since they are the
scoring favor.
You get it.
That is how you're trying
exactly.
to say.
So he would say, well, I've done this for you, and therefore I should be able to get these other things from you. So, I mean, that is how it is in Africa.
Well, what are the feelers you're getting as to the concerns over how this protest is being handled? Has there been any official condemnation, for instance, from the government to how the police is handling the protest? Or is there any other reaction of note that you think people should know about?
Essentially, it has been from the opposition. Opposition has complained about how people have been handled, how people have been repressed, how people have been arrested. Government has not made any official position known. What we are aware of is government saying that the security forces will do their job. But if they do their job and people are killed, if they do their jobs and people, businesses are disrupted, if while they are doing their job, people are injured, it means that they are not doing the right things. They should support protesters, but they should ensure that protesters do not violate, their civic responsibilities. They do not destroy properties. They do not disrupt movement, within the cities and roadblocks and all of that. So that is what you expect the security forces to do. However, that is not what is happening. What we continue to hear about is unnecessary repression of popular, protests.
Yes, there's actually a report by Amnesty International citing the fact that the government seemed to be using repressive measures to quell opposition. Most times when things like this happen, we want to talk about what the international community is doing. But I want to see if I can bring this a little closer home and talk about what has been the response of regional bodies like the African Union and ECOWAS to the conflict, the seeming, not conflict really, to the ongoing protests. I mean, conflicts don't just happen. They are preceded by certain events, and the protests seem to be unabating. It comes now, it goes, it comes again. So has there been any reaction of note from these regional bodies?
Mostly what we hear is from civil society groups, expressing concerns from the feelers, from investigations, of people, on ground. The last time, I think, Faki Muhammad had expressed concern to say that democratic processes should ensure that people are able to participate meaningfully in, electioneering process. Apart from that, it's been basically civil liberties organizations and political leaders in the country expressing concerns, about the goings-on in the country.
Quite unfortunate reality coming out from there. But from everything you've seen about the situation in Senegal, Is there a better way, you think, that the opposition can share and impress on the outside world their grievances other than take to the streets? Because though it is a right that everybody can express, innocent citizens are the one paying the price. We understand the death toll has risen to about 3. And who knows, maybe in the coming days, this is the official figure. Maybe in the coming days, we hear something else. So is there a better way that the opposition can go about expressing their anger and their grievance other than these protests?
Well, there are other measures, there are other methods, but it seems that most African leaders only understand language of protests. When you write to government agencies, when you seek hearing from the parliament and all of that, because you feel you have power, you are in control, you are the ruling party, most times you are overruled. And then even when the opposition is expressing something that is for the betterment of the country, people most of the time feel as long as they are in power, as long as they hold the reign of governance, they are right. You know, power, power is might, once you are there, or might is right. So once you're there, you can dictate how the country is run. However, a lot of times when opposition protests, ahead of protest, there are usually correspondences to, agencies of government for reviews.
So it's like concerns. The last resort.
It's probably the last resort where there is nothing else they can do. I mean, even the concerns about the accusations against Ousmane Sonko, a lot of people feel they are just, it's just a rouse, just something to block his chances from, getting power.
All right, I understand we have the good doctor via telephone. I'm talking about Dr. Bassin Pap Sherif Patron at the University Sheikh Anta Diop, Dakar, Senegal. So if you can hear me, thank you for joining us on VSA. I mean, the network is pretty bad, but I hope we can get your thoughts, no matter how short. Some clarification here, Doctor. I asked my colleague about the reports that Senegal's new constitution adopted in 2016 limits presidential term to 2 5-year mandates. Sall came to power in 2012 and won re-election in 2019. What is the technicality he referred to in his interview with a French magazine? Is he still constitutionally allowed to run for presidency?
Thanks for having me. Technically, the constitution that we have, you said the law cannot be retroactive. So Macky Sall has promised, this is an electoral promise, that he will diminish his mandate, the term, the number of years. But once he gets the power, the issue was raised, and he asked, after having a new constitution that was elected through a referendum, he asked the constitution, the constitutional court, whether he can apply the new constitution to his going term. And, they told him, it's a board, their role is just, to see the conformity between the law, the new law, and the constitution. And they told him that the constitution said that the law cannot be retroactive. So the issue was settled when we went to a referendum. And we knew that in 2019, when we went for the referendum, everyone was saying, 2015, everyone was saying, this is a trick. This guy, once he gets his new constitution, he will not, apply the number of years to his term, and he will be having the possibility to have 2 new terms of 5 years. Because the former term was based on the 2001 constitution. So that's why the opposition knew that. And I know that there is here an issue of morality because he promised during the election. But if we talk about, the constitution itself, the question was settled when we were asked to go to the referendum. And everyone knew that, he has to decide to resign and say that, okay, I will apply myself by resigning. But by asking the constitutional board that told him, you cannot do it. Everyone knew that he's going to ask another term of 5 years.
Doctor, I'm afraid I really have to, I'm sorry, I have to do that. We're out of time. I'm hopeful we can get you back for a more extensive conversation another time. Thanks for giving us your time.
Okay.
Abdulateef, thank you very much for speaking with us on Village Square Africa.
Thank you for having me.